Welcome back to Brief Recess. This is Under Oath, where we take a deep dive into a hot topic that is all over your feed, that is in the headlines this week. Right now, we are pleased to share that we are joined by Congressman Robert Garcia, who represents California's 42nd District, covering Long Beach and southern Los Angeles. He was born in Lima, Peru, and he's the first openly gay immigrant in Congress. He's the former mayor of Long Beach, and he serves as the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee, currently reviewing and investigating the Epstein files. Please join me in welcoming Congressman Robert Garcia.
Welcome.
Yeah, happy to be back. Thank you.
It's good to see you.
You too.
So we thought it'd be great to have you on the show because Todd Blanche is now the Attorney General. And I know that you have been intimately involved in everything that's happening with the Epstein files and the investigation therein as Oversight Committee leader. What do you believe Todd Blanche knows that Congress still needs to get out of him in regards to the Epstein files?
Well, I think first, a couple of things are important. People need to recognize that only half of the Epstein files have been released. There's about 3 million documents have not been released. So imagine an investigation where half the evidence has not been released to the public. And we honestly believe that some of the more incriminating information, interagency communication, possibly, obviously, conversations with the president and or others, a lot of that exists in this batch of files that hasn't been released to the public. Mm-hmm. In addition to that, we know from Pam Bondi, the former AG, that Todd Blanche basically directed this whole operation at the White House. I mean, this whole White House cover-up has been really a Todd Blanche creation. And we know from reporting that he was there with Susie Wiles, with J.D. Vance, with Marco Rubio, with a bunch of other folks as well.
So you did actually question Pam Bondi, and she shifted responsibility very clearly for the Epstein files to Todd Blanche. So what did she tell you that made you think, Blanche is now the person Congress most needs to hear from, right? When you were talking to Pam Bondi about this.
Well, she mentioned him, I think, 35 times as the person in charge of leading the Epstein investigation at the DOJ. And so she clearly pointed all of the energy on Todd Blanche. And look, the survivors themselves have said that Todd Blanche has been central. I mean, this is the guy, by the way, that directed the move of Ghislaine Maxwell from a really secure facility to a less secure kind of like club-fed environment facility, which no one explains to us to this day as to why that happened. He went to go meet with Ghislaine Maxwell one-on-one. We still don't know what happened in those kind of conversations. We don't know why she's getting special treatment. So everything always points back to Todd Blanche. And I think it's important for people to remember also, this is someone that was Donald Trump's former personal lawyer. This is not some career DOJ official or some well-known former state AG. This was Donald Trump's lawyer for a long time, who is now the Attorney General.
So you've been demanding that Todd Blanche appear before the committee and submit to an interview regarding the Epstein investigation. What has the response been since you've issued that demand?
So obviously we're in the minority as Democrats, and so the folks that control who comes in are the Republicans, and the chair of the Oversight Committee, James Comer, who leads Republicans, my counterpart, he's committed that we're going to bring in Todd Blanche. He kept saying, if he gets confirmed, he'll come in. So we've been again asking the question, when is he coming in? Because he needs to answer questions on the Epstein investigation. So time's a ticking. It's time for him to come in now.
Right. Why hasn't that happened yet?
Look, I think there's no question that Todd Blanche is leading the White House cover-up. He's trying to exonerate President Trump. Donald Trump and Epstein were best friends for 10 years. People were being trafficked from Mar-a-Lago to Epstein. And so there's enough there, as including all the other powerful men around the world that have engaged with Epstein to abuse and rape women and children. And we need to get to the truth. And Todd Blanche keeps leading this cover-up.
Is there an expected timetable when he absolutely has to be spoken to and people need to ask him? Or at this point, because Democrats are in the minority, it's sort of out of, I hate to use this word, but sort of out of your control. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, unfortunately, at the end of the day, the control of who comes in to testify and when is up to the Republicans. There have been some cases where Democrats have been able to force a subpoena motion, or we've had a few Republicans join us to win very slim margins of votes, but that's rare. We maneuver that when somehow we kind of spring it on them, or we get a couple people, we pick people off that want to support the investigation. But at the end of the day, this is James Comer, the chair's decision. He has promised and said it publicly dozens of times that he wants to have Todd Blanche in. And so we expect, and I hope, that when we're back in session in September, mid-September, that we have Todd Blanche actually in.
Here's hoping.
You said this week that Blanche is trying to expand executive privilege in a way that could obstruct the Epstein investigation. What could that prevent Congress from getting? We already only have half the files. So what would that actually do if he was able to do that? And how do we stop it?
So the files themselves are a piece of evidence, right? Interviews with survivors are a piece of evidence. Interviews that we have with a bunch of folks involved in the Epstein orbit, all part of the evidence. Another important part of data and information that we need are communications within the administration, like who talked to who about the Epstein files. Was there a cover-up? Who directed that cover-up? And one of the very first things Todd Blanche does now that he's AG is he puts out this new guidance. It says, I'm going to expand executive privilege. Executive privilege essentially means that a president, Republican or Democrat, it's all been all this way in the past, has some level of confidentiality between himself and another member of his administration. And there are certain topics, perhaps, that might be national security or whatever else that covers that. What he has now said is that executive privilege actually is so broad that it's the president and anyone else outside the administration that they may view as a key advisor. And so what that really means now is that Donald Trump can be having conversations or directing things with people outside of government, and they're still considering that executive privilege. That's illegal. We think it's unconstitutional. It's not going to hold up in court, but it's an example of what Todd Blanche is trying to do to protect Donald Trump. And it allows now for Donald Trump on any issue around Epstein or anyone else for that matter in the administration to somehow claim that they can't release that information because it's executive privilege. And it's retroactive, by the way. So it's things that Donald Trump could have talked about when he served as president in the last couple of years.
Millions of Epstein-related files are still being withheld. We only have half the files. The victims have seen no justice. Ghislaine Maxwell meets with Todd Blanche and gets a cushy prison upgrade. What is the most important category of documents the public hasn't seen yet from the Epstein files? Is there something you've seen that the public hasn't seen yet?
Most of what Congress has seen, the public has seen. I think there's been some things that have been redacted to protect certain survivors that we haven't seen, but the public has seen most of what we have seen on the actual files. What we still don't have is, we believe, is a lot of communication between administration officials, government officials, and the president, and or different things that they view as executive privilege. I mean, anything to do with the president of the United States, they have this blanket executive privilege strategy, which we don't think actually aligns with the law. And so there's a lot of Donald Trump information and files that we believe still exist with the DOJ that we have not seen. And that is incredibly problematic. We also don't have any information about who's been directing the cover-up and why. Why from day one were they saying that they were going to release the files but then didn't? Why did they call it a hoax? Why did they say there was nothing else to be released? Why do they dox some of the survivors? All that information has also not been released to us. And so that's we're not going to stop until we get all the files released and until there's justice. And we don't care who's implicated, whether the Republicans or Democrats or independents. We could care less your party, how much money or wealth you have. But if you actually abused, trafficked, raped children or women, you should be held accountable. And the fact that there's been no accountability for so many of these men is why we're in this fight. We've got to get justice for the survivors.
We do. Agreed.
Thank you so much, Congressman, for joining us. I appreciate you and all the work that you're doing. I look forward to where this investigation is headed. It's so important. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.